Good morning to all of you. We will be going for the next session. The next session will be on SLS and DMLS machines, the design challenges, which will be taken over by Mr. Niranjan from Rapid DMLS. Mr. Niranjan is an electrical engineer by qualification and has worked in metalcraft industries and stellar engineering. He is currently the managing partner in Rapid DMLS and as such has carried number of works. To name a few, he has done optimization of orientation and support design for metal AM based on the part design using Magix. He has done the redesign of components for additive manufacturing in order to prove a valid business case. He has also done designing and preparing test samples for research work, parameter development for new materials, in-house product development, data preparation and machine process parameters, complete machine operation of EOS M20, 280, post-processing of the printed parts, and feasibility checking of parts and processes using DFAM according to the industrial and medical application of parts and implants. There, the major modification in design as per AM standards, lightweighting, lattice and honeycomb structure and cat splitting to fit the build area and deciding the orientation of the parts while printing was carried out. We hope the session would be highly informative. I request all the participants to kindly mute your audio and video so that we do not have any disturbance. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'll 1 minute. Yeah, can you see my screen now? Hello?
Uh,
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see.
yeah, we can see, sir.
Okay.
You can put it on slideshow, sir.
Yeah. Yes. I'm one of the partners in Rapid DMLS. We started this in 2017, still where the 3D printing in India was still in its nascent stage. So we are one of the leading service providers in India. So today, as per the topic SLS and DMLS machines design challenges, we would like to put it in why, how, and when to metal 3D print. So I would take you through some of the parts what we have done, tell you about the designing and orientation and all those things. Yes. So if we see the brief presentation view, the understanding of the process and design for metal AM guide, these are the two topics. So basic thing in understanding the process is how the DMLS process works, and we need to evaluate the metal AM idea of if we take a part, how we can do the part, what are all the constraints we need to evaluate before printing the part. Then if we're going to designing the metal AM guide, we need to see the self-supporting angles, how we can do the post-processing after printing. If the part is not printable, how we can make it printable, all those things. Yes. Next. Yeah. This is the machine what we have in our facility. It is an German make machine. This is the number one brand in the world. So the build size of this what machine what we have is 250 mm by 250 mm by 310 mm we can print in a single shot. If the part is bigger than that, then we need to split it, print it, then join it together. Yeah, the process of DMLS. Firstly, we need to design a part so that we can print it in this 3D printing. All the parts which are designed cannot be 3D printed. So we need to take the designing constraints into the our. We need to think how to design for 3D printing, and then we need to design. So once we do the designing, the 3D modeling, yeah. So once we need to see how we can do the designing for 3D printing. Then after that, we need to do a 3D CAD model. So basically, without the CAD model, we cannot do any 3D printing. Then after we do the designing, we need to prepare the model for printing. And data preparation involves the orientation of the part, then if supports are required for printing, then if the part can be printed or not also we'll have to check in this data preparation. After that, this is the machine, inside of the machine what we have. Here the powder, we'll put the powder. Here this is the build platform where the actual printing will take place. Yeah. So yeah, if you see here the photo, this is the part which is being printed, the photo of the part, and this is the final part after printing, which is still inside the machine. After this, we need to take it out from the machine. Oh, 1 minute. Yes, there was some issue. 1 minute. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So after we get this is how the part will be there in the machine after the printing is over. Then we need to take this out. Then we need to do the post processing, and this is how the end product will look like. So if we see the basic functioning of the machine, so this is where this is called the build platform. Here the actual printing takes place. This is the laser apparatus, the laser source, where it is the laser generator. This is the beam reflector, and the beam will come like this, and it will melt the powder as per the design. This is the dispenser area where the powder, we load the powder, and the powder will be laid like through the recorder in this direction, and here the excess powder will get collected. If you see here, so this is the previously printed area, first, second, third layers what will be printed earlier to the ongoing layer. So this is the powder raw material. As you can see the laser beam, this is the laser beam dia. So once the laser beam comes in contact with the powder, it melts and it creates a melt pool. The melt pool radius will dia will be bigger than the laser dia, as you can see, because the melt whatever the material is melted, it will be surrounding the laser beam dia. So the area will be more actually. So yeah. I will show you one video where the printing is taking place. Yeah, as you can see now, the laser is melting the powder and it's printing apart. So this is the one of the layers happening. So once each layer is completed, the recoater goes to the dispenser side, brings the powder, lays it on the build platform, and the laser comes and melts the powder again as per the design. So this is a repetitive process till the part is completed. Yeah, so it keeps on repeating until the process is completed. These are the some of the frequently asked questions about the metal 3D printing. So how accurate will be the part? What will be the cost of the part? What will be the benefit if I do through 3D printing and not through conventional? So I have some examples which I'll show you. How accurate is metal AM? If you compare metal 3D printing with other forms of manufacturing, so there are conventionally four of them, and if we consider metal AM in this, so the accuracy will be between 0.1 and 0.05 mm, that is 100 microns to 50 microns. So actually, if you see, it's in the exactly in between. 1 minute. Yeah. So if we want very accurate parts, we can do all the other processes like CNC machining and wire EDM, where we get around 10 microns to 3 microns in wire EDM. Machining we get around 50 microns to 10 microns. So yeah, if we have to do some mass manufacturing and all those things, metal AM, if the design is not viable to manufacture through any other method, then we consider metal AM for mass production. Or else we go through conventional routes like machining, casting, sand casting. We get it done through that, and then we do the post processing to achieve the accuracies. So this is you see the particle size distribution. This is how the powder it will look, and if under 200x microscope, if we see, this is how the powder will look like. All spherical shape will be there. The particle size will be in spherical shape, the powder size. Yeah, after while the printing is taking place, due to the constant melting of the powder, there is lot of heat generated. So the component will undergo thermal expansion, and once it solidifies, so there will be shrinkage, due to which there might be some buckling up or bending of the part. while printing. If you see here, you can see the this shrinkage effect here due while printing due to the thermal expansion and thermal shrinkage. So to avoid this, what we do, we give some stock. So if there are some softwares where we can see where the part will buckle or where the effect is more due to the thermal shrinkage, all those things. Accordingly, we do some design modifications, we give some stock, and then we do machining or other post processing which is required. Also, after printing, if we need some tapping, locate taps in the part, we need to do it manually only, because tapping will not, taps will not come very good in 3D printing. So we need to do all the tapping holes. If you consider holes with smaller dia, like 1 mm, 2 mm, 3 mm, we can print it. It will be like 10 or 20 microns off. If you go to a larger dia, the variation in the hole size will be more. So if we want the holes to be very accurate, we need to machine the parts later to get the exact size of the holes. To the second question will be, how much will it cost? How much will it cost for printing of the part? So basically the cost of the part, we consider build time, the material cost, and the post processing cost. Build time is basically how much time the part will take to build, and material is whichever material we are going to consume. So that will be the cost. If we come to post processing, there are a lot of activities involved in post processing, depending on the part. Which part, according to the part, we need to decide the post processing. If any heat treatment is required, or any finishing is required, or any smooth surface is required inside the part, because some of the parts there will be fluid flowing inside, air flowing inside. For that, they would require very fine finish, very smooth finish inside of the part. For that, there is something called as abrasive flow machining, where they put some abrasives in with high pressure, where the rubbing activity takes place between the abrasive material and the part, due to which there will be material removal. So like very small, like 20 micron, 30 micron, 40 microns material will be removed, due to which very smooth finish will be achieved wherever these abrasives will be going. But again, we should see that the accessibility or the whatever we are passing inside the part should come through, because if the material gets stuck inside, then the part will be of no use. The actual functioning of the part will not be achieved if anything gets stuck inside. Yeah. So some of the different types of materials what we have is like aluminum. So this is basically a good conductor of heat, where it is used in heat sinks, heat exchangers, and for functional prototypes also it's good. We have done some parts in aluminum which have gone in Air Force. They have flown it in their flights, and they have given us a good review. I'll show those parts and all those things later. And waveguides. Waveguides is a very good application for 3D printing. I'll show you some waveguides later. This is stainless steel, one of the materials what we do. So yeah, it's good for some functional prototypes. It is used in automotive industry, aerospace, all those things. Then this we have stainless steel 17-4 pH. Maraging steel is there. This is usually called as tool steel, where tooling inserts, majorly it is used in tooling industry, injection molding, die casting, all those areas. Because this material we get a good hardness. We get around 54, 55 HRC hardness, which is very tough to achieve in other materials. Then Inconel 718 is one more material what we have. This is a very good heat resistant material. So this is basically used in engine part, hot side of the engine parts, where the temperature will be very high, and so it has to withstand that. The material has to withstand that. So they use it there. Then if you go to titanium, it's a very tough material, where they use it in aerospace industry for this turbine blades. So, and in medical industry, they use this titanium for implants, like hip implants, knee implants, all the implants, titanium is used mainly. Yeah, if we come to the cost benefit analysis of the part, if some part is being manufactured through conventional route, it's better we get it done that way, because some designing something which is already being manufactured in conventionally for additive manufacturing will not work out, because the cost will not work out, because the cost of manufacturing additive in metal 3D printing is comparatively very high compared to the CNC machining or other routes. So in 3D printing, if we take conformal cooling, these type of channels cannot be manufactured through this conventional route. So these channels, what is the use of these channels manufacturing like this? The cooling time of the tool is reduced very drastically. By this, the tool life is increased 5 to 10 times more than the conventional route. So by that, the cost of the tool manufacturing in 3D printing will amortize over a period of time compared to this CNC machining or this thing. Because if you manufacture through CNC machining or any other method, conformal cooling, which cannot be manufactured, plain cooling channels have to be put. Once we do that, the tool life is very low. So we need to keep on changing the tool for some specific production units, something like that. So if we eliminate that and use only one tool for the whole production unit, whole production cycle, we get the parts dimensions in the same way as the last part can be achieved in the same dimension as the first part. So there will be no dimensional variations. So if we consider this bracket, this topology optimized bracket, the original design, if you can see, the weight of the part was very high. So what they did was, they did some modifications by removing the material wherever it was not required. Then they have put some ribs and those things. So this was verified on the software by putting actual loads, how much the load will be taking and those things. By doing this redesigning, the redesigned part could withstand more load, more weight than the original part. And due to the weight reduction, so this is a bracket antenna which is used to go into space. So by reducing the weight, they're reducing the cost of launching. So if they have to launch a rocket, if they save 1 kg, the cost of launching will be reduced drastically. So they'll be looking to reduce the weight wherever it is possible. So by this, they reduce the weight drastically, by which they saved a lot of millions of dollars. If we see this part, this is a classic example of part consolidation. This is a GE's part. So this was basically like 25-30 parts manufactured individually and then assembled. So by doing redesigning of all these parts into one single component, they eliminated the manufacturing lead time. Also, they need to manufacture the parts through various vendors. Coordination for all the vendors, that was eliminated. Then the manufacturing time of manufacturing 25 to 30 parts in different places at different times, that was eliminated into a single part, which could be manufactured in 3D printing in one day, like 15 to 20 hours. We can get this part done, where earlier it used to take 3 to 4 months time. So by doing some redesigning and achieving the same structural functional properties as the earlier parts, we can reduce a lot of time, lot of effort, and lot of money. So this is one more thing for design optimization. This is called topology optimization. If this is a waveguide, so earlier it used to be 4 to 5 different parts manufactured and assembled. This was earlier manufactured through CNC machining. If you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts were manufactured through CNC machining, then assembled through fasteners. What happens if we do like this? There will be loss of signals. Loss of signal means loss of communication ability, transmission ability, all those things. So through redesigning, it was made into a single part, where this part can be manufactured in around 5 to 6 hours time. But this used to take around 1 week to 10 days. Yeah. So by doing some design changes without any functional or what do you say, functional capacities, any changes in the functional capacity, we can manufacture the part in a very short duration. Yeah. These are a few more examples. This is an integrated heat sink. This area is manufactured in metal 3D printing. If you see whatever I have highlighted here, so this is a heat sink. Earlier, what used to happen was this pipe used to be manufactured separately. This heat sink used to be manufactured separately and then assembled together. Now, with the design modification and other factors, this is done into a single part, where the efficiency of the cooling is increased without changing any functional properties. And this is an hydraulic manifold. Earlier it used to be around 5 kgs. This whole solid block. This is a solid block. Then a CNC machine. All those things. It was given some design changes with same functional properties, and it has been reduced to 1.3 kgs. A weight and reduction in weight of 3.7 kgs, which is very huge in metal 3D printing or any other manufacturing methods. And also it's very lightweight, and the functionality doesn't change. It can be improved while doing some design changes. The functionality of the component can be improved than the traditional production method. If you see here the conformal cooling channel, this is a tooling insert. This is how it looks from the outside. So if you see here, this type of cooling channels, what we have provided It cannot be done through CNC machining or any other method. By doing this, as I told earlier, the cooling efficiency of the component is increased and the life of the tool is increased. These are some of the parts which we have done. These some of the batch production. If you see this, this is alternative to casting. So earlier, this is an HP NGV turbine blade done to one of the companies. So this is done in Inconel because this is going in the hot end. It's going to withstand a lot of heat. As you can see, there are many tiny small holes here. This is used for cooling. Air will pass through those things and come out, and the blades here are kept cooled, are kept at a specified temperature. If the cooling does not happen through this, then due to the heat of the part, these blades will buckle off, bend, and the part will not have its same original strength or design. Once the bending and all happens, the part is they scrap the part and use another part. They cannot afford to do that because these parts are very expensive to manufacture. So they take care of all the cooling in the designing. And if we see this one, these are all dental chromes. Dental chrome, manufacturing a single dental implant is not feasible. So what they do is they take many dental implants from many of the customers. They stack it up and then they print it. So this is right now in India very common. Most of them are using this dental implants. Most of the doctors are using this dental implants. So if we see this is a prototype. What we did for laryngoscope. This used to go inside the mouth. Doctor used to put some camera here to check inside the mouth, inside the esophagus, how it used to be. So here the camera setup and all used to be put here, and this part used to go inside. So this was a proto done for them. Yeah, if we see this one more, freedom of design. What do we mean by that? If we consider this is a nozzle, Venturi nozzle. Venturi nozzle is basically used to amplify the air, amplify the input air in the output. If the air is 1x in the input side, we can make it 5x, 6x, 10x depending on the design. So if we see here, so this is a single part, and this is the we have section. After printing, we have cut the part to showcase the inside of how it's done, and this is the single piece. This kind of manufacturing is not possible in any other method. You can see this here inlets are there. Yeah, all these things here are once the air comes in the inlet, once it comes here, the atmospheric air is sucked from these holes and amplified, and it is given to the wherever the application is required. It is focused there. So this is one of the wonderful applications which can be done in additive manufacturing. This is multiple Venturi nozzles in a single box to amplify the air more than 100x or something like that. Yeah, if we evaluate what we have is a 250, 300 build volume. So parts can be redesigned for this build volume. Very complex parts where I showed you the conformal cooling and this Venturi nozzle and all. If we can design it in that fashion, it is very good for this metal AM. Then if we have to do the post-processing or finishing, we need to consider if we can access the part wherever the post-processing is required. If it's the post-processing is only required on the outside of the part, then there is no issues. We can just do it on the outside. If the finishing is required on the inside of the part, then we need to see the accessibility of the part on the inside. Yeah. I will show you some designs for metal AM. Yeah, designing parts for metal AM. There is something called as self-supporting angles. If you can see here, if the printing angle with the horizontal is around 20 degrees, the part will not print and it will look like this. If it's 25 degrees, it will look 30 means like this, 35, 40, 45. So basically, we take as 45 degrees and above is good for printing because there is something called as down skin and up skin. This is the down skin because it's below the part. If the angle goes below 45 degrees, the surface roughness of this area will keep on increasing. So the part will be very rough. And if it goes beyond 30-25 degrees, the part will not print and it will be a waste. So we need to give supports for this. Again, material consumption, wastage of material, as you can see here, it's below 30 degrees, non-supporting. To print this kind of structures, we need to give supports. As the red color, whatever you see here, these are supports. To remove these supports, then again we need to do the post-processing and the cost will be more. Yeah. So if the angle of printing is more than 45 degrees, the part will print on its own. We do not have to give any supports. We'll reduce the cost and the part will be printed much faster because the material consumption is less. If we see this part, this is the actual part what we got from one of the customers. They have done the designing as for machining route. If we can see, this below part is one, above part is one, and these are two cooling channels. This printing this in metal 3D printing is not possible because the self-supporting angle is not there. This flat to the build platform. What happens is when it's like this, there will be a lot of supports generated inside, which cannot be removed. This is a section, half section of the part. Once it's a full 360 degree, we cannot access the part inside. So what we did was, we did a self-supporting angle like this, like 45 degree angle, where the part could print on its own without any support. As you can see here, 45 degrees self-supporting angles have been included in this design. Also for this cooling channels also, if you can see here, on 45 degrees V-shape we have done, because any supports should not be arrived at in the part. Yeah. Once the printing is completed, there will be a lot of powder inside of the part which has to be removed. If we do not remove this part and if we give it for heat treatment or if some cooling channels are there, if we pass water through that, the powder will become solidified, by which the functionality of the part is gone. The functionality of the part will go. So the powder has to be removed from the part. So this machine in which the this build platform and the part is kept is called a depowdering machine. So what it does is it vibrates at the plate. Due to the vibration and due to the movement of the arm, 360-degree movement will be there for this arm. We can remove the powder from the part and we can clear all the powder whichever is there inside of the part in the cooling channels or in the supports, by which we can reuse the powder. If there are very, very critical parts where not even a single gram of powder should be there, we do this depowdering, then we do the air blowing, then there is something called as what is that? I'm not getting that name. They put it in a solution to clean it. So that they do to remove all the powders. Yeah. If we see this horizontal cross-sectional area is also one of the points we need to take care while considering printing. If the cross-sectional area of the part is very large with respect to the build platform, what happens due to the heat generated due to the thermal constraints and expansion, the part will buckle off like this. So what we need to do not to arise at this situation is, in designing, we need to give some supports, or there is something called as giving radius to the part, where the part will hold on to the plate and it will not buckle off. As you can see below, these are some of the support structures, and this is the part. The heat which is generated is not dissipated. The heat which is generated while printing the part is not fully dissipated to the build platform, due to the thermal expansion and contraction, the part has buckled up. So what we need to do not to arrive at this is, we need to give solid supports by which the thermal conductivity is increased and the heat is directly transferred to the build platform. Also, we should avoid a sudden increase in cross-sectional area. By having a very large cross-sectional area, there will be a lot of heat generated on the platform, by which the build platform will there will be bend while in the build platform, by which we might experience some bend in the part of those. So we should design in such a way that there is a gradual increase in cross-sectional area, or we should orient the part in such a way that there is a gradual increase in cross-sectional area of the part while printing. So if we consider thin walls for printing, the minimum wall thickness should be around 0.2 to 0.5, because our laser beam dia is 0.1 mm. So we cannot do a 0.1 mm thickness due to the constraints of the technology. So 0.2 to 0.5 mm is the rule of to build the walls, thin walls. So what happens if the wall thickness is very small? Due to the recoater load, the walls will bend due to the load which is happening. So if the wall thickness is like thicker, like 1 mm and all, it will withstand. But if the wall thickness reduces, then the buildability also reduces. Buildability reduces if it's point more than less than 1 mm. And one more effect is called as a staircase effect, where when we do the slicing of the part, if you see here, as I told you earlier, like down skin, up skin, down skin is the downside of the part, up skin is the upside of the part. The angle of printing is less than 45 degrees. The staircase effect is more. The part, as you can see here, the part staircase will be like this. If it's 30-degree, the one slice will be here and another slice will be here. So as there is no supporting structure for this to print, the surface roughness here will be very rough. If you can see the angle of printing here, it is 65 degrees. Here, the area is very less, where the printing can happen, and also the surface roughness will be like 5 to 10 RA. If you can see this part here, as you can see this slicing of this area, since the staircase effect is more here, the roughness will be more. If it's the part is straight, if it's the slices are one above the other, if the slicing happens one above the other, there will be a smooth surface area compared to the sliced area here. If you can see in this part, if you see here, as this area without supports, it will not be printed. So this converging area has a lot of steps. If you can see here, the stepping effect arrived on the part. So this can be eliminated by doing some orientation or doing some design changes, all those things. If it is very important, if the surface finish is very important. But if it is okay, if it is some general part, all those things, then this should do good. If you consider holes and bores for printing, if you can see here, holes with smaller dia can be printed without any major significant change in the dimension of the hole. But once the hole size increases due to the staircase effect and support which is not provided, we can see here the dimension of the part, dimension of the hole changes. This can be eliminated by we can do an undersize hole in the part and then pass a drill to achieve the exact size of the hole, or we can provide supports and then remove, which will take a lot of energy, lot of time, material is wasted out. So once it comes to printing of holes and all, what we do is we do an undersize hole, then we do the drilling of the holes to the required size. Now, if we consider bridges is nothing but the gap, how much gap can be printed between one surface to another surface. Here, if you can see, we have printed some, so an example to show the 1 mm, 2 mm, up to 2 mm, 2.5, we can print without any supports. But if the length increases above 2.5 mm, then the printability and the surface roughness will not be achieved. Majorly, the printability will be affected. Sometimes it can be printed because there is a simple orientation what we have chosen for an example, which is okay. But while printing, if there are some constraints and the while recoating the powder, the recoater may come and hit the part and then it may damage the part. So printing the bridges above 2.53 mm, we usually provide supports or we do a V shape, 45-degree self-supporting. And then if the 45-degree V shape design is okay, it's well and good. Else, we need to remove that by doing some wire cutting or do all the machining or any other post-processing activities. So one more concept is called overhangs in the design. Overhangs means how much of the part can be printed without the support of any part. You can see here we have done some printing to show up to 0.5 mm without any supports overhangs we can print, but if the part goes above 0.5 then the part will not be printed. If it has any overhangs, then we need to provide supports or do some design changes, give a chamfer, fillet, or like that design changes. One more thing is called as angle to recoater. There are two things, against the recoater and towards the recoater. Here, this is the recoating blade and this is the part. So this recoating style is called towards the recoater and this recoating style is called against the recoater. What happens is, if the part is against the recoater, if the recoater comes in contact with this part and hits the part will come off or warp and it will change its direction, as you can see the dotted line, due to which there will be dimensional changes and due to the part getting off from the original area, the recoater will come and hit this part and then the printing will stop. So we need to consider that the sharp edges and all does not come in contact with the recoating arm. Here if you see the part, it is towards the recoater, means if the recoater comes and hits the part, also the recoater will go, as the part is not coming in contact with the recoater. So always while doing the designing, we consider the printing recoating arm, if it comes in contact or it does not come in contact. And supports. Supports are necessary for a part to print. There are, if we do designing in such a way that there is no support required, then it's well and good. But in many cases, we will have to provide supports for the part to print, also to eliminate the heat which is generated while printing. If the part is oriented like this and well, this area is being printed without the help of the supports, this area will be printed, will not be printed, we cannot know. We need to consider the angle. So we do not take any risk, so we'll put the supports. There are many types of supports. There are solid supports, then there is called E-stage supports, then volume support. There are many supports are there. We need to consider to put which support for which part, and then we need to do the data preparation for the part. If we provide supports while printing the part, the only disadvantages are the material is consumed and the time is increased, and the surface roughness is increased wherever the support is in contact with the area. The surface roughness can be made smoother by other post-processing activities. Yeah, but if the supports are required, then we have to put supports and then print the part. But if we do designing in such a way that supports are not required, then it's well and good. So if you consider this, this is a hydraulic manifold. This part, it's a hydraulic manifold. The part is optimized by removing unwanted material, all those things. They've kept that in mind and they've optimized the part. So, for printing this part, if you can see wherever the support is generated, this, here it is very difficult to do any design modification. So, here we need to provide supports for the part to print this area, and things like that. And supports can be removed through wire cutting, CNC machining like milling, turning, and manually through chisel and those things. After printing, one of the post-processing activities is heat treatment. Heat treatment is usually done to relieve the stresses inside of the part. While printing, as there is a lot of heat involved while printing the part, there is a lot of thermal expansion and contraction happening, due to which there is a lot of stresses built in the part. So to remove the stresses, we put the part along with the platform in the oven. Then there will be standard cycles for each material, so that cycle is carried out in either inert atmosphere or vacuum, depending on the material. And surface treatment is also one of the processes involved in post-processing activity. If we see this before, this is part as printed part. So vibro tumbling is one of the post-processing activities. If we do this, we get some shining finish like this. There are a lot of cycles involved in vibro tumbling. So depending on the finish required, depending on the accuracies, depending on how much material we can let go in the part, we can achieve the surface finish. And the one more thing is bead blasting. If you see here, this part, it is as printed, and this is glass blasted part. So the look of the part and the surface finish of the part is increased. If we consider design for additive manufacturing, as I've been telling, this is the conventional hydraulic manifold. This is the transparent view of how the manifold looks inside. And this below one is the manifold, which is designed to be manufactured through 3D printing. As you can see, this hydraulic manifold, earlier it was around 2.4 kgs. Due to the design modifications, the part weight has been reduced to 0.32 kgs with increased functional capacity of the part. There is one more example for design for additive manufacturing. If you can see here, the supports have been eliminated in this part by doing self-supporting angles. You can see here 45, 45. They've included some functionalities for this, and then they've done the part. I'll show you some of the important parts. This was one of the parts done for Indian Air Force, which we did. So this was their recommendation letter for that part. That was the first part done for Indian Air Force, which we did, and it has flown in MiG and Sukhoi aircrafts. And we got an LC. LC means local certification. So we need to prove out the part. So that part, it successfully completed 50 landings. So once they do all the testings, they certify that this part can be used in 3D printing. So basically that part was coming from Russia. Due to the shortage of supply and all this Make in India and all those initiatives, all the government agencies, they are trying to get their parts done in India. So there are many parts which can be manufactured in India. The one more thing about this part is we did not know the original material of the part provided by Air Force. They just gave us the part. So we substituted the original material, which we didn't know, with whatever material, aluminum we had. This is an aluminum material, ALSI 10 mg. We did it and it has been successful. So it need not be the same material, conventionally available material and those things. We can substitute whatever material is available in 3D printing to the parts which are not available. So this is one of the rocket engines what we have done. This is one of the waveguides. This is actually 3 parts. This is one part, this is one part, and this is one part. All the 3 were manufactured separately and then assembled. It just looks like a box from outside, but there are a lot of channels inside of this part where I'll try to show you that in the design. And this is a keychain. This is a classic example of design. If you can see this keychain is not assembled. It is as printed. By considering the design for additive manufacturing rules, we have given clearances for the inside part to rotate, as you can see here. This is printed in a single part, like this is the bottom, so it's printed in this direction. So for weight reduction examples, this is an impeller, solid impeller. If you can see this inside, there's latch structures by which we can remove some of the material and keep the strength and functionality of the part same as the original one by reducing the weight. These are some of the examples where this type of designs can be incorporated in the models. This type of design can be incorporated in this impeller also to reduce the weight, but it depends on the structures, the strength, all those things, whatever is required. This is an artifact, what we did. This is if you can see these tentacles, it is movable, and this is done in a single print. We haven't assembled any of these tentacles. By giving some clearances in the links, this can be made movable. So part consolidation example I've given you already. So recently we were in news in Deccan. I'll show this one more video.
It's widely reported how the Indian Air Force is hit by a shortage of spare parts. When spares coming in from abroad are often delayed, it would be ideal to manufacture these intricate spare parts right here in India. This Bengaluru startup did exactly that. Rapid DMLS 3D printed a bracket of MiG and Sukhoi fighter jets and shipped it in just a matter of days, which otherwise would have taken months. Somewhere in the near future, we will be able to 3D print most objects, food, body parts, and much more. 3D printing has thrown the manufacturing industry wide open. Needless to say, there is a massive growing demand in the nascent 3D printing space.
The show which I used to watch was Shakalaka Boom Boom, where the kid used to draw with his magic pencil. When I heard about 3D printing, that is how I felt. I could go to the 3D printer, print something I want, and I could get the part. So every day I come to office, it's kind of that being in the show.
The aerospace industry has been among the early adopters of 3D printing. And Rapid DMLS is printing engines for launch vehicles to be put into orbit.
We have done monolithic rocket engine for a space startup called Agnikul in Chennai, and they are being monitored by ISRO. So what Agnikul does is they make rockets for payloads within 100 kilos, and we have done rocket engines for that. You can print the rocket engine in 4 to 5 days, whereas the conventional route might take up to months. And right now, we are developing a proto of an aero engine for the Defense and Research Organization.
The global additive manufacturing market is all set to grow from $600 million to $3 billion in 7 years.
When we started, we had two options, either to go with polymers or with metal. We chose metal because metal has a lot of functional importance compared to plastics.
Shravan believes that widespread 3D printing across industry verticals can catalyze India's growth. But 3D printing is a costly affair right now. And Rapid DMLS says that creating new materials is the first step in making it affordable.
In 3D printing, until now, we have just 8 to 10 different alloys which have been qualified. There are a lot more to go. So our main aim is to put up multiple machines, use 2 or 3 for the production, and the rest for research and development, where we keep developing new materials. That could take up to an year, but once we start developing new materials, it goes to all the industries and different potentials are then opened up. Because all these alloys are available through conventional manufacturing. But when it is available through 3D printing, it is a game changer.
Not only does metal 3D printing have exciting prospects for the future, but it also holds relevant possibilities for the present. Over the years, Bengaluru has transformed into the startup capital of the country. In this series, we will be looking at the most exciting startups in the city. Do tell us what you think in the comments below.
Yes, that was, we were in the news recently. There's a short clip. That was one of my partners. He's also one of the co-founders. Yeah, thank you. I'll be happy to take any questions if you have. Yeah, I'll be happy to take any questions if you people have.
Yeah. If there are any questions, please type it on the chat box, or you can ask.
Chat box.
Sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one question.
Uh,
How supports are designed, or it will take automatically?
both options are there. Supports are generated automatically also. We can put it manually also. But the supports which are generated automatically in the software, we 50 to 60% of the times we can rely on that, but we need to verify that if the part is being printed or not, it can be printed or not. So it's basically there are simulation softwares are there, and basically we have printed many parts. So based on experience, we get to know.
One more question, sir. Can surface finish be improved by acetone treatment?
Sorry?
Can surface finish be improved by acetone treatment?
That is chemical etching?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the material. If the material reacts with the chemical, then we can go in that route. But we need to check if the material will react with the chemical.
One more question, sir.
Yeah.
Which process of 3D printing have less surface defects?
Sorry. Which process of 3D printing?
Have less surface defects.
Surface defects like that we cannot say, because it everything is in the hands of data preparation. So if we prepare the data in such a way that there is no error or any, if we prepare the data where we can achieve the surface finish while printing, then it should be of not a issue. So we need to see in the data preparation, we need to take care.
1 second. This is Sudhakar from EOS.
Yes,
Can
sir.
I answer this question on the surface defects?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Actually, this surface defects doesn't happen. See, basically, this 3D printing, it is melting actually. Okay, so what happens is it becomes a very solid surface, and as during the presentation also he had told that hardness value is about 54, and only thing is the surface on the top will not have any cracks or anything. It is solid. It's a solid block. Okay, if it is a surface defects, you mean to have any fissures or anything? If that is your question, it will not be having any fissures. We can get the desired surface roughness based on the data preparation, as he was telling. So if you want to have a finishing, much better finishes, for example, mirror-like finish, then it can also be done through separate process, other post-processing activities, where you can improve the surface finish like to a mirror finish. So surface defects will not happen because it is the process is a melting process, and it is a 99.99% dense part. And one more thing is on the acetone treatment answer for that also. Acetone is basically used on a polymers, not on metals. Only chemical etching is used in for metals. So acetone is as such not used in metal finishing. It's only for polymers. I hope I answered the questions.
Thank you, sir. So
Yes.
we have a couple of more questions.
Yes.
How can we reduce the porosity issue in 3D printed products?
Porosity. So it's in metal. In metal, there we do the parameters. There are printing parameters are there. So if we want the parts to be porous, depending on the application, we change the parameters accordingly. Or else, usually the parts will not be any porosity will not be there. The parts will be 99.9% dense. So there is no question of porosity. If we want the part to be porous, then we can do it. But the basic the parts will not be porous as printed for the usual applications.
To add to his point, normally what happens in your normal conventional method is there is a billet and then you remove the parts. It's basically a subtracting process where there are properties inbuilt on the metal billet. So you don't induce any properties there. You are just going to remove the part, the unwanted material only. But here it is a powder. It is from one form to another form. That means a powder form to a solid block form. So during this process, you have this process parameters wherein you can induce these properties based on your requirement. For example, if there is for medical applications, we need a lot of porous or maybe the very rough surface, because the osseointegration of the tissue should be very good. So that there we use porosity more. But for example, if you're going for aerospace parts, their porosity should not be there, because it is at a high temperature, at a high pressure it will be used. So porosity should not be there. That's why we say it depends on 99.99% dense part. So porosity is something that we can induce, because from a powder form to a metal, solid block form, you are going to transform. So during this transformation, the process parameters can help you get the desired value of porosity. As such, if you are not going to use any porosity, then the part is 99.99% dense.
Thank you, sir. So one more question. The strength of part material is same as that of conventional manufacturing.
Conventional manufacturing. See, there are very limited materials available in 3D printing. So there is two kind of things. One strength is as printed. If you consider Maraging steel, that is tool steel, as printed, we get around 38, 39 HRC. So to increase the hardness, what we do is we go for heat treatment. So once we do the heat treatment, the structural changes happen internally, and the hardness is increased to 54 HRC. So it depends on the part. If you take aluminium, as I showed in my slide earlier, the hardness is around 1 minute. I'll show you 120 HB. So if we do heat treatment for aluminium, the strength reduces. So it depends on the part. It depends on the material what we are using.
One more, sir.
Yeah.
Can we use metal for processes like FDM by doing some improvement in FDM?
Okay.
In FDM, sorry.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't get you. If we do?
So can we use metal for process like FDM by doing some improvement in FDM?
You mean to say you want to design the parts in FDM and then do metal 3D printing?
Shall I take this question?
Yes, sir.
Because see, FDM, there are some FDM metal printers which have come up recently with metal filaments. Yes, there are, but they are in a very nascent stage. So it is not like the polymer based FDMs where it has been improved. So metal FDMs are coming up, but the strength wise, because as you know that it's going to be it's a spool where it is heated and just melted and then it's fixed. So the strength and other things, it can be used for look and feel, or maybe some kind of a finishing that is what it can be used. But still there are few FDMs which are with metal is there in the market.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Which post-processing do you mostly follow at your firm?
We do, the first thing is to cut off the part from the build platform. So for that, there are two things, wire cutting and bandsaw. We use wire cutting because wire cutting, what we can do is we can design supports in such a way that we can remove the supports also in wire cutting. And along with that, we remove the part from the plate and we do heat treatment of the parts to increase the hardness if it is required. Then there is machining, CNC machining. If we need to do tapping, all those things, then we need to do it through machining or manually. If we have to increase the accuracy of the part, which has, then we consider machining, either milling or turning depending on the part. Then shot blasting is there to increase the surface roughness. Then vibro tumbling is there. Then that is again to increase the surface roughness to give a very smooth finish. Then again abrasive flow machining is there. This is basically used to improve the surface finish on the internal channels. If there are any internal channels in the part, abrasive flow machining is used. So there are many methods, post-processing methods. So it depends on the part, depends on the application of the part and all those things. Yes.
Other
So,
than
one
3D,
to just add to him, see, putting it in a nutshell, the post processing is basically on the requirement of the final product. Okay, the base post processing, what this part which has been printed undergoes this wire cutting or a bandsaw cutting to remove the part and to sandblast so that the powder which is inside or on the surface is removed. These are the two things post processing which is required basically, but the rest of the things, whatever he was telling, like abrasive finishing and all those stuff, is required only when that particular part needs that information to be done. So to be in a nutshell, there are only two post-processing required after the part is finished. The rest is based on the requirement of the final part.
Yes.
wait. One more question, sir. Carbon fiber nylon composite material surface finish can be improved by acetone treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we don't do any plastic or carbon.
Yeah, I'll take this question.
Yes.
Because actually there is another session in the afternoon, 2 o'clock.
Right. Yes.
I will be covering a few of the nylon or the polymer-based materials also. So actually, acetone is not used in everything. Acetone is basically, see, what happens is when you use acetone, you get a polished surface. I do agree, but it's a very dangerous process because it can catch fire very easily. So acetone bath is not used that much. But if you're going to use acetone bath, then there is a dimensional issues because it just melts the topmost surface. So what happens is the dimensional accuracy goes off. So acetone bath is not used at all the places, only when it is required. For example, non-dimensional parts, it has been used. But for carbon composites, I've not seen people use acetone treatment.
Yeah.
Hope I have answered your question.
So one more. Can titanium implants directly be manufactured?
Yes, there many of the patients in India have got titanium implants in their body. So
to answer that question, in the afternoon, I have a few slides on the titanium implants, which has been implanted in India, which I was a part of. You'll have a few slides on that. Maybe you can see during that time. Maybe I can also explain you during that time if you can ask me questions over there. So, and there are medical grade titanium, which is available wherein it can be implanted directly. So which is already certified by the FDA.
Yes, sir. Can you tell the minimum thickness for which DMLS can be used? Is the next question.
Minimum wall thickness, we 0.5 mm. That's what we say. If the part is very small, but again, this is part specific. We need to look at the part because if 0.5 mm, if you are going to print it 100 mm long, then the part won't print. So we need to look at the part first. Basically 0.5 mm thickness.
To add to his point, 0.5 mm thickness can be built. Again, even lesser than that can be built in a different orientation. See, it again depends on how you orient and what you get. So it again, say for example, 0.3 mm. If you're keeping it flat, then you can print it. So likewise, because we have a 20 micron layer thickness, then you can print a 0.3 or a 0.4 mm thickness plate. So it depends again how the orientation is going to.
Orientation, part specific, all those things come to picture.
So this one more.
Yeah.
Can different metals be used in a single part?
While printing, we cannot print different materials together. So what they is hybrid. What happens is we print the part if there are 3-4 materials, one above the other, we print the first material first. We take out all the powder. We clean the part. Then we put it in the machine. We print the second material. We can do like that. So that process can be followed, but in a single print, it's not possible. And the materials have to be weldable. All the materials which you want to do, they have to be weldable, and the carbon percentage has to be very less. If the carbon percentage is more, then printing is difficult.
Okay. So, we'll just take this last question, and there are a few more questions which we can ask the participants to share it directly by your email.
Okay.
Yeah. So, is there any application of DMLS 3D printing for metal parts in direct contact with food?
Food.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Yeah.
I request the participants to please not share your screen, and kindly keep your video and audio in mute. Thank you. Sorry for the disturbance, sir.
Food so basically these are metal parts. So we can use the components. Stainless steel material is there for food grade. We can do anything in that, but as a rapid DMLS, making components for food grade, if it is very complex, we suggest. Else you can do it through conventional manufacturing.
Yeah, to answer to that, to continue answering with that, see, actually the titanium, the biocompatible material can also, because it is in touch on your screen, or it can also have on the blood flow and other things, that can also be used on the food, because it is certified for both.
So one more.
Yes.
Is direct energy deposition method better than the DMLS process?
It's specific. It's component specific. So we cannot tell that this method is good, this method is bad. DED is good for some of the applications. DMLS is good for some of the applications. So it's specific. We cannot generalize the technologies.
To add to that point, DED is basically more widely used on the repair technology. If you're talking about DMLS in repair technology, we have very constraints. But DED has a very wide range of varieties where it can use for the repair technology. So that is a major difference between DMLS and DED.
We'll just stop it with this last question, sir.
Yeah.
As there are so many constraints while printing in DMLS, how can anyone get the right way to print a very complex part with minimal error?
Okay, I will show you one of the parts. 1 minute. One minute.
He's showing for
See, this is a heat sink. This is a sectioned heat sink. So this is the full heat sink done for a motorsport application. And this is the internal structure. See, if you can see this fins, all these fins are designed to increase the cooling efficiency. This kind of a part, you cannot think of manufacturing through other methods. So we need
1 second, we are not able to see a part. It's not on the screen. We are able to see only one. There is a slide which has a lot of parts. We are not able to see anything else. I think you have to share that screen.
1 minute. Now you can see now.
Yes,
Yes, yeah.
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 So this is a heat sink. This is a full heat sink. So if we can see the internal structures of this, there are a lot of pins which are there to increase the cooling efficiency. So these kind of parts we cannot manufacture conventionally. Even if we take casting or all those things, this kind of internal structures will not be manufactured in that. So DMLS is the only technology for this kind of parts. And this is a part consolidation. So, see, this is a waveguide. If you can see if you can see this part, earlier it was around 100, more than 100 parts together. So, with the help of designing for additive manufacturing, this is made into one single part. So we need to see the application, we need to see its users, we need to see a lot of other factors and then decide.
Thank you, sir,
Yeah.
for a very informative lecture.
Yeah.
We hope most of the queries with respect to DMLS has been answered. Sorry, we won't be able to take in any more questions because we are running short of time. So we will end the session over here for now. We will please join in for the afternoon session at 2 o'clock sharp, where we have the sessions on topology optimization by two speakers, Mr. Daniel Amos and Mr. Sudhakar, who was answering some of the questions right now over here for the session. So any more queries we can put forth in his sessions. Thanks a lot, sir. Niranjan sir, for taking time off your busy schedule and giving us a very informative lecture.